In the 5th century B.C., the historian Herodotus stood before a structure that made the Great Pyramid look like a child's toy. He didn't just call it impressive, he called it impossible. A colossal complex of 3,000 rooms, half of them buried in total darkness beneath the earth. A building where the walls were covered in carved figures that seemed to move in the torchlight, and the roof was made of a single, massive slab of stone. It wasn't a tomb, it wasn't a palace, it was a physical map of the stars, a celestial machine built to house the knowledge of the gods. And then it vanished. For 2,000 years, historians claimed Herodotus was lying. They said a building that size, a structure that surpassed the pyramids, couldn't just disappear. But in 2008, a team of researchers using ground-penetrating radar in the Fayum Oasis saw something that chilled them to the bone. Deep under the sand, they found a massive geometric grid, a grid that shouldn't be there. The labyrinth isn't a myth, it's a ghost, and what's hidden in the lower 1,500 rooms is something the Egyptian authorities are still trying to keep buried. Imagine walking into a doorway and feeling the air change. It's cold, it smells of dry dust and ancient stagnant water. Herodotus describes 12 roofed courts with gates facing one another, 3,000 rooms, 1,500 above ground, 1,500 below. The passages were so winding and complex that without a guide, you would wander until you died of thirst. But here is the first clue to our puzzle. Every room was connected to a specific star or constellation. The ancients weren't just building a maze, they were building a mirror of the sky. If you walked through the labyrinth, you weren't just walking through a building, you were walking through the galaxy. But why build half of it underground? The upper rooms were filled with human works, art, records, history. But the lower rooms? Herodotus was forbidden from entering them. He was told they contained the sepulchres of the kings who built the labyrinth and the sepulchres of the sacred crocodiles. But look closer at the geometry. The layout suggests something far more functional, something that wasn't meant for the living or the dead. Close your eyes and listen. The sound of your sandals on the polished white limestone, the echoing drip of water from a hidden vertical shaft. The labyrinth wasn't just big, it was loud. The wind whistling through the narrow vents created a low-frequency hum that vibrated in your chest. Ancient visitors claimed the building felt alive. The walls were monolithic, huge blocks of stone joined so perfectly you couldn't fit a needle between them. No mortar, just precision. And then the light. The upper courts were flooded with desert sun, blindingly bright. But as you descended into the lower levels, the light was replaced by oil lamps that flickered on the scales of the sacred crocodiles. These weren't just animals, they were guardians. But here's where the open loop starts to tighten. If this was the greatest achievement of the Egyptian empire, why is there no mention of it in their own official records? Why does it only exist in the writings of foreigners who were terrified by what they saw? But everything we thought about the labyrinth's disappearance was wrong. We assumed it was destroyed by time or dismantled for its stone. But at the 4-minute mark, we find the plot twist. In 2008, the Mataha Expedition used high-tech scanners at Hawara. They didn't find a pile of ruins, they found a great petrification. The labyrinth didn't fall down, it was swallowed. The water table in the area rose, and a massive layer of salt and mud encased the structure, acting like a natural tomb. But here's the weird part. When the team released their findings, proving the labyrinth was real, the Egyptian Supreme Council of Antiquities shut the project down. They suppressed the results. They forbid further scanning. They claimed it was to protect the site. But researchers believe there's another reason. The scanners didn't just find rooms, they found anomalies. Large metallic objects buried in the 1,500 lower rooms that don't match any known Egyptian technology. Imagine a world where the labyrinth wasn't a temple, but a hard drive. The ancients believed that the cycles of the stars dictated the rise and fall of civilizations. If you knew the stars, you knew the future. Some theorists suggest the labyrinth was a star mapping center, a place where priests tracked the precession of the equinoxes, a 26,000-year cycle. Every room represented a point in time. Every hallway was a path for the sun. It was a 3,000-room computer made of stone. But why build half of it underground? The upper rooms were filled with human works, art, records, history. But the lower rooms? Herodotus was forbidden from entering them. He was told they contained the sepulchres of the kings who built the labyrinth and the sepulchres of the sacred crocodiles. But look closer at the geometry. The layout suggests something far more functional, something that wasn't meant for the living or the dead. Today, if you visit Hawara, you see nothing but a crumbling pyramid and a field of mud. The greatest building in human history is right beneath your feet, and you would never know. It is the ultimate out-of-place artifact, a structure too big to exist, yet too real to ignore. The labyrinth remains a silent witness to a time when humanity not just looked at the stars, they built them on Earth. Why is it still being hidden? Perhaps because the truth it holds would rewrite every history book on the planet. Until the day the mud is cleared and the gates are opened, the labyrinth will remain a dream, a ghost in the desert, waiting for us to remember how to read the map.